Welcome to our deep dive on navigating immigration status changes during urgent international travel. First, we will set the stage for why timing is the most significant risk factor when juggling I-751 and N-400 filings. Next, we will outline the pitfalls, the practical steps to secure temporary proof of status, and how to plan travel. Finally, we will close with key takeaways and a brief quiz to test understanding. In this agenda, we will start by reviewing the context and the primary risks. Then, we will discuss the pros and cons of filing the N-400 while the I-751 is pending. After that, we will explore why approvals can arrive with little warning and how that impacts travel. Next, we will explain the ADIT or I-551 stamp, including what it is and how to obtain it in an emergency. Then, we will move into best practices for travelers waiting on status changes. Additionally, we will review diagrams that visualize decision-making, timelines, and emergency escalation. Finally, we will include a short quiz to reinforce learning. To begin, the overarching issue is timing. When a person files to remove conditions on permanent residence with Form I-751 and later files for naturalization using Form N-400, combining these processes can be efficient but risky. Importantly, any unexpected approval can disrupt travel and reentry if proper proof of status is not in hand at boarding. Before we proceed, this content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Each situation is unique, and immigration outcomes vary based on individual facts and changing policies. You should consult a qualified immigration attorney for personalized advice. Next, let's unpack the risk of filing the N-400 while the I-751 is still pending. This approach can be efficient because it sometimes leads to a combined interview covering both removal of conditions and naturalization eligibility. However, if the I-751 evidence is incomplete, it can prompt a request for more evidence or delay adjudication. Even small documentation gaps can stall the entire process. This can cascade into scheduling conflicts and jeopardize travel plans. Now, an essential insight. While processing can take a long time, final approvals can arrive without warning. If an I-751 is approved immediately before travel, an approval notice by itself is not sufficient for boarding an international flight back to the United States. Instead, a traveler needs the physical 10-year green card or a temporary proof of permanent residence in the form of an ADIT or I-551 stamp. This is the crux of the last-minute crisis many travelers face. This flowchart illustrates the main decision points. First, determine whether international travel is imminent. If it is not, proceed with normal preparation, including assembling robust I-751 evidence and avoiding travel around expected decisions. If travel is imminent, verify your I-751 status. If it remains pending, the extension notice with an expired card may be acceptable in some contexts, but risk increases near interview or decision dates. If the I-751 has already been approved, confirm whether you have the physical 10-year green card. If you do not, you must pursue an ADIT or I-551 stamp via an emergency in-person appointment. If you cannot secure that stamp before departure, you should consider postponing travel. The flow also flags combined interview dates and requests for evidence as high-risk times where travel should be avoided or rescheduled. Moving on, here is the playbook for obtaining an urgent ADIT or I-551 stamp. First, gather documentation: your approval notice, a valid passport, your expired 2-year green card, any extension notice, your international itinerary, and evidence supporting the urgency. Second, call USCIS to request an emergency in-person appointment at a local field office. Third, clearly explain that your flight is within days and that you require immediate service. Fourth, if you encounter delays, escalate politely and request same-day or next-day availability. Fifth, attend the appointment with originals and copies, arriving early and prepared for security screening. Finally, after receiving the stamp, confirm that its validity covers the entire travel and return period. This sequence diagram shows the interactions for an emergency stamp request. The traveler first contacts the USCIS contact center and requests an emergency appointment there. The request is escalated to a callback unit, which in turn coordinates with the field office to schedule a time. The field office provides appointment details. The traveler attends with the required documents, and the field office places the ADIT or I-551 stamp. Upon departure, the traveler presents a passport and the stamp at airline check-in to obtain a boarding pass. Finally, the traveler presents documentation to Customs and Border Protection at the port of entry and, if all is in order, is admitted as a lawful permanent resident. Now, let us crystallize best practices. Provide comprehensive, organized evidence for the I-751 before any combined interview, reducing the chance of delays. Avoid booking travel close to interviews, requests for evidence, or anticipated decisions. If an approval arrives just before departure, request emergency stamp service immediately. Travel with your itinerary and supporting documents, anticipating questions both at airline check-in and at the port of entry. Finally, include buffer days before and after your travel to handle contingencies. This comparison clarifies documentation for boarding versus reentry. On the left, for boarding an international flight bound for the United States, the physical 10-year green card, or an ADIT, or I-551 stamp, is appropriate, while the expired conditional resident card, with a valid extension notice, may be accepted while the I-751 is pending. Its reliability changes once the I-751 is approved. An approval notice alone is not enough. On the right, for re-entry at the port of entry, the standards mirror boarding. The physical 10-year green card, or an ADIT, or I-551 stamp are appropriate, and the approval notice by itself does not prove lawful permanent resident status for travel. This table lists essential items for an emergency ADIT appointment. A valid passport is required to place the stamp. The I-751 approval notice demonstrates status approval when the physical card is not yet available. The expired 2-year green card confirms prior status, and the extension notice provides useful context, particularly if airline staff have questions. Your travel itinerary is necessary to prove urgency. Any documentation supporting the emergency can help secure a faster appointment. Finally, printed informational pages can assist in explaining the ADIT or I-551 stamp to airline staff if needed. Quiz time. The question is, if your I-751 is approved days before your international trip and your 10-year card has not arrived, what documents allow you to board and re-enter? The options are 1. The I-751 approval notice, 2. An ADT or I-551 stamp or the physical 10-year green card, 3. A photocopy of your expired 2-year card, or 4. A pending N-400 receipt notice. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is an ADIT or I-551 stamp, or the physical 10-year green card. Airlines and Customs and Border Protection require valid proof of lawful permanent resident status for travel and re-entry. An approval notice by itself is not sufficient. This timeline presents a practical planning horizon. Starting 12 to 6 weeks before travel, gather comprehensive I-751 evidence. From 6 to 2 weeks before travel, avoid booking flights near anticipated interviews or decisions. In the 2 weeks leading up to departure, maintain flexibility in case a decision is imminent. In the week before travel, if an approval arrives, request an emergency ADIT appointment. On the travel date, proceed only if you have the physical card or the ADIT stamp. After returning, confirm delivery of the physical card and update your records. To summarize with a concise Markdown-style recap, do not rely on an approval notice to fly back. Do secure an ADIT or I-551 stamp if your physical card has not arrived. Do not plan trips near interviews or likely decision dates. Do carry your itinerary and a complete documentation set. The mini checklist includes your passport, I-751 approval notice, expired conditional resident card with any extension notice, your flight itinerary, and any supporting emergency documents. For our second question, what is the biggest controllable risk factor when stacking I-751 and N-400 with upcoming travel? The options are airfare price fluctuations, processing center location, timing around interviews or decisions and evidence completeness, or weather at the destination. You may pause the video now to think through the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is timing around interviews or decisions and the completeness of your evidence. These elements are critical and largely within your control compared to external variables. Managing them well reduces the chance of delays and travel disruption. Here are the key takeaways. First, overprepare I-751 evidence to avoid requests for evidence or delays. Second, do not assume processing will be slow. Approvals can arrive unexpectedly. Third, remember that an approval notice is not a travel document. You need the physical card or an ADT stamp. Fourth, if approval arrives just before travel, request an emergency appointment immediately. Fifth, avoid travel near decision windows and build buffers around important dates. In summary, stacking the I-751 and N-400 can be efficient but becomes risky when travel is involved. For re-entry, you must have the physical 10-year green card or an ADT stamp. An approval notice is insufficient. If you face an imminent trip after approval, act quickly and escalate for an emergency appointment. Plan travel well away from interviews and anticipated decision dates. Thank you for watching. If this video helped, please like, share, and subscribe. We would love to hear your thoughts and questions. What is your biggest timing concern when planning travel around immigration decisions? Share your experience in the comments.